Welcome to Grow Kids!
I'm Pastor Justin.
I'm Pastor PJ. Welcome back to Grow Kids, where we are learning how to grow our faith in Jesus. And we are currently in a really cool series called Blast Off, where we're doing what, Pastor Justin?
Learning to launch our faith to new heights.
Launch our faith to new heights. So we're exploring space a little bit in this series. And last week, we played some cool games, talked about things that we would miss if we were up in space for a long, long time.
A lot of things.
Things like food and activities, but mostly people, I think, is what we landed on. But today, I have a different question for you, Pastor Justin.
Got it.
What are some things that you cannot do in space that you can do on Earth? Tricky question.
Things I can't do in space. Similar to some of the stuff we talked about last week, I wouldn't be able to play sports in space. I'd just be all floaty. I wouldn't be able to cook. I don't like cooking as much as I like baking cookies. I think, would you say they eat food out of tubes and stuff?
Maybe they have space cookies where they squeeze it out like toothpaste.
That sounds so gross.
It does sound gross. I would try it.
I would try it. It's cookies, man.
Yeah.
What about you? What's something that you think we can't do in space?
Well, one thing that I recently learned that you can't do, which is kind of funny, we do it all the time, is you can't talk in space because there's no air. And so you need air to communicate, and it's kind of complicated. You can ask your parents the science behind it. But you need air in the atmosphere to be able to talk and use your words. And so when you're in space, in order to speak to someone, you need special equipment, like a special helmet, you need an oxygen tank, you need all this crazy equipment just to be able to use your words and talk. Because since in space there's no air, everything is just silent. Anyway, so today we're going to play a fun game to kind of pretend that we're astronauts in space, not being able to use our words, but we need to find something. So for this activity, you're going to need some kind of spaceship. You can have a print-off spaceship like ours. You can have a spaceship toy. If you have a spaceship toy at home, you can kind of do whatever you can to make whatever kind of spaceship. You don't need a toy necessarily, but
A spaceship.
some kind of spaceship. And what we're going to do is in your house, in your room, wherever you are right now, hide your spaceship and find a partner, be it your parents, a brother or sister to play with you, or friends to play with you, and you're going to help them find the spaceship, find the hidden spaceship by not using your words.
No words at all.
No words at all. So Pastor Justin, what is a good way, if I were to hide this spaceship, what is a way that you would want me to guide you to find it, but I can't use any of my words at all?
Maybe the closer I get, the louder you clap.
Louder I clap, okay.
Or the faster.
Okay. Can I stomp my feet
You
really
can
loud?
also stomp your feet
I
really
can stomp
loud.
my feet really loud, or maybe you can come up with stuff that we haven't even thought of. Use your creativity to guide your partner to find their hidden spaceship, and maybe you can kind of challenge yourself to do it as quickly as possible. And if you do it quick, you can play again. So
Let's show them how.
Let's do it.
Let's show them what we mean, all
we'll
right?
give you an example.
Here we go. All right. Now, Pastor PJ is going to hide our rocket ship, and I'm going to have to find it. Let's do this thing. Okay, so PJ hid my rocket ship somewhere, and now based on how much noise he makes is whether I get warmer or colder. So PJ's over there, and he's gonna clap when I get warmer. Okay, so it's not that way. Ooh, that's slower. Ooh. Whoop.
Pastor Justin, you did an awesome job finding the spaceship. Well done, my friend.
Thank you, sir. You did a great job communicating, not even using any words. That was pretty impressive.
Thanks, man.
But it did make me think of something. Would you rather be really loud or really quiet, like a ninja?
Really loud or really quiet? Well, I'm already kind of really loud. And I like being myself, so I will choose to be really loud rather than to be really quiet. What about you?
I talk a lot and I'm pretty loud also. I sometimes wish I could be quieter, but, if there was one person that you just love to talk to, who do you think is your go-to talk to person?
Definitely my wife, Lindsay. I love talking with her about our day, about how we're doing, all that stuff. I love talking with her.
Yeah, same. I like talking to my wife. Not your wife, my wife. I also like talking to my parents because my family lives in Michigan, so I don't see them all that often, so we'll do FaceTime and things. I really like talking to them too. But today we're going to see a story about these two guys that have a lot of stories, right? And their lives were changed by Jesus. And they couldn't help but talk about them. They wanted to share their stories with everyone, and some people wanted them to be quiet about them. So today, as we continue to learn what it is to launch our faith to new heights, we're going to learn this big thing. Here's our big idea today. We can share God's story. So say this with us. We can share God's story. Let's check it out.
Hey there. Are you ready to blast off into another story? I love stories. I especially love stories about spaceships, faraway planets, and outer space adventures. Those are the stories I like to hear over and over again, and I like to tell other people about them too. Well, this story is so amazing that I can't wait to tell you about it. If you're ready for the story, count down with me. Let's hear it. 3, 2, 1, blast off! I am so excited to tell you this story today. Have you ever had a story you couldn't wait to tell? Maybe you saw a really cool animal and couldn't wait to tell your grandma about it. Or maybe you learned a new trick at the playground and wanted to show your dad or mom right away. Well, this story is so amazing that I can't wait to tell you about it. In the Bible, we can read about two guys, Peter and John, who were really excited about sharing a story too. It was the story of Jesus. They couldn't wait to tell others about how Jesus came to save the whole world and how he loves each and every one of us so much. They knew all about Jesus because they were Jesus' friends, and they couldn't wait to tell everyone about him. But the problem was, some people didn't want Peter and John to talk about Jesus. They were the leaders of the city, and they were afraid that people would start listening to Jesus instead of listening to them. So they arrested Peter and John and put them in prison, saying, "Stop telling people about Jesus." You might think Peter and John would be scared or sad to be in prison, but even though they were in a scary place, they kept telling people about Jesus and how Jesus came to save us. When the leaders of the city asked Peter and John why they would keep talking about Jesus after they'd been told not to, they said, "We've seen what Jesus has done, and we can't stop talking about it." Then they let them go. Peter and John wanted to tell everyone about Jesus. That's how excited they were. Just like Peter and John, we can share God's story too.
Hi, I'm Shannon, and I have a short lesson for you today. If you'll just listen for a couple minutes, I can share a little story with you. I have two balloons. They're different. They look the same color, but they're different inside. If I hold up this balloon and I drop it, what do you think will happen? Nothing. It just falls to the floor. If I hold up this balloon, what do you think is going to happen? It flew away because it was filled with something powerful. When Peter and John traveled from city to city, sharing Jesus' good news and performing miraculous healings, not by their own strength or power, they were like the second balloon, filled with air, but the air was God's Spirit, giving them power, strength, joy, and hope. How did God's Spirit get in them? Easy. They had a relationship through Jesus. God's Spirit filled them up. With God's Spirit in us, we have the courage we need to share God's story. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Miss Nikki and this is Emma. We are going to do this month's Bible verse in sign language to help us remember it. This month's Bible verse is Psalm 119, verse 105. You ready? Okay. Your word is a light for my feet and a light on my path. Good job. Should we try one more time?
Yeah.
Okay. Your word is a light for my feet and a light on my path. Very nice. Good job. Thanks for joining us.
Well, kids, thanks for joining us for Grow this week. I hope you had a lot of fun. I know that Pastor Justin and I did, and hopefully you learned a lot too about God wanting to use us to share his story to everybody. That you learned about Peter and John not being stopped in sharing the good news about Jesus, even though people tried to stop them. We learned about, through the illustration using the balloon, that the Spirit of God lives within us, giving us the power and the courage to tell others about Jesus. Even though sometimes it might be intimidating or it might be difficult to do, God gives us the power to do the things that he calls us to. And so I want you to remember the big idea for today, that we can share God's story. That you can share God's story. I think that's a pretty great thing. And so we will see you next time. And until then, remember that God loves you so much and that he calls us to love him and love those around us. Have a great week.